Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to let everyone have a minute or two to come on in here, and then we will get started. It'll be an exciting day. Last week, I mentioned this a couple times during this week. I was pretty proud of myself for talking about chart of accounts for 30 minutes, although there was a lot of content, right? And let's be real, when it comes to any list information in any software, there's a lot of content. But this week, in our topic, there's not enough time. 30 minutes is not even close to enough time, but we're going to work our way through it. All right, let's get rolling so we can get through as much as possible. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Marjorie Adams. I'm going to be leading this series for us here. So we have our QuickBooks Enterprise versus QuickBooks Online Advanced series. We get questions constantly. The majority of our customer base is QuickBooks Enterprise, and we are getting questions constantly about if QuickBooks Online Advanced is ready for our desktop product or desktop clients to make that jump, right? And so we're presenting this series so that people can start to feel comfortable with it and start to build that confidence for when they are ready. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about accountant settings. That's what they call it in QuickBooks Online Advanced. Preferences, that's what they call it in QuickBooks Enterprise, and we're going to be going through this series. Just as a reminder, a little bit about Fourlane, our formula for success with our customers. A lot of our clients come to us needing one thing, and then they end up coming back for more. We are all about getting data to make decisions. Once we have data, usually we want more. So we're here with you for that journey. So how do we get to data? We have good, consistent processes, great training documentation. Obviously, we do services like product conversion, getting people into whatever product they're going to be using going forward. And so you can see some of these different services here. Custom reporting, QuickBooks Advanced reporting, so QBAR for Enterprise. QuickBooks Online Advanced has got Fathom, and they also have a new custom reporting that's in beta, but actually in product. So some neat things coming out in reporting there, but that'll be another session. So today, what are we going to be going through? So accountant settings or preferences, right? I'm going to be focused in on what QuickBooks Online Advanced does as far as what choices you have in the preferences section, or what they call accountant settings. And that's because there is less there than there is in QuickBooks Desktop. QuickBooks Desktop has been around for just significantly more years, right? So they just throw in these little random things left and right. Some of those things I have never used on any client ever. So if I went through every single preference that is in QuickBooks Desktop, we would be sitting here for a couple of hours. I'm not going to do that. I instead want to focus in on what does QuickBooks Online Advanced do and compare it to what does Enterprise do. So preferences, right? These are going to be in any software that you're using. Any accounting program should have some kind of preferences or setup. When you enable or disable features of the software, this is where you would go to do that. If you are not using certain features, so like if you're in your accounting software and you see this field that is there and you look at it every day, but you're not putting any information in it, we should try to figure out if we can remove that field, right? Because it's a distraction. You want to simplify as much as possible for your users so they can focus in on the stuff that we need them to put in, and nothing else kind of detracts from that information. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be going in product today. This PowerPoint is available, by the way, in the handout section of the webinar. This is the QuickBooks Online Advanced preferences that we're going to be going through today. And then you also have a list here of the QuickBooks Enterprise preferences. Depending on how much time we have left, I will go through some of the key things that are available in Enterprise that are not available in QuickBooks Online that we just want to keep in mind still at the very end of this. But it's more focused on like, what does it have, right? Because we can always talk about, you know, all the things. That doesn't necessarily mean we're all using all those things that are available to us. Okay. And if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the questions area. I'll try to get to questions throughout the webinar. And if I can't get to them, then we will follow up after the fact and make sure we get those answers for you. Okay, so let's go ahead into QuickBooks Online Advanced. So here we are, logged in QuickBooks Online Advanced. When I come up here to my little gear, I have my accountant settings. So of course I can see this because I'm logged in as the master admin of this file. Not everybody would be able to have access to accountant settings. In QuickBooks Desktop, I had on my other screen because I was comparing before this. In QuickBooks Desktop, in our edit and preferences, this is how we get to there. They do have a concept called My Preferences, so a user individually has certain things that they can change, right? Like I like to use Enter instead of Tab, or I want that beep sound to beep at me every time I do anything in the program. I mean, some people like it. So they do have some My Preferences in here. QuickBooks Online does not really have a My Preferences section, so we're going to skip over that, and we're just talking about company preferences today. So coming up here to accountant settings, we're just going to work our way down the list. So we have company here, right? Company information is actually not in the preferences section in desktop, so it's in the My Company section. So if I come into company, I go down to My Company, this is the information that we're talking about here. So one thing that QuickBooks Online does that desktop does not do is we can put a logo in at this point, right? So that can be used on other templates. So that's pretty cool. We have our company name, EIN number, all standard stuff, which tax form. This field also, we were actually just talking about this in our custom development meeting. We have a custom development team here at Fourlane, and we were talking about the fact that in QuickBooks Desktop, you don't really declare what industry you're in, right? You declare it when you are registering the product. When you set up a company file, you say which industry you're in, and it kind of gives you a default chart of accounts, but it doesn't hold that information anywhere. So this industry information here is in QuickBooks Online. It's pretty cool that they have it. It is, I'm expecting you to be able to do benchmarking, which they do have available in QuickBooks Online. Benchmarking is comparing, you know, I am a manufacturing company, compare my numbers to other numbers in the same industry. Okay. So that is available here, so pretty neat. We were just hunting for that for a project that we're working on in desktop, and it's not there. The only thing you have in desktop really is like which version you have installed, right? And there's only a couple choices. Company contact information, all this is pretty standard. QuickBooks Online does have some extra fields. So they have the company address field. This field is a little bit different than in desktop. This field is actually used for if you have a subscription of QuickBooks Online, this tells Intuit what sales tax to charge you. And then they have, of course, a customer-facing address. So this is what's going to default fill in on any forms. And then the legal address, which is going to fill in if we connect to any tax products. Oh my gosh, am I not showing my screen? Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. Holy cow, I can't believe I just went through all that without showing my screen. Oh, the joys. Oh, the joys. So basically, I just went through this. This is all I was going through right here. So I guess I should take you through that again. Settings, accountant settings, and then I'm just on company. So this is as far as I've gone so far. Okay, all this accountant settings is really not a preference, right? All of these things are in any file that you set up, any software you set up, you're going to be setting up what's my company name, what's my email address, etc. Okay, billing and subscriptions. So again, I kind of spewed through that because it's not what function can we use, right? So I'm going to push forward instead of going back and revisiting. Billing and subscriptions. Now this is something that QuickBooks Online does that is really neat. In QuickBooks Desktop, if you have to change your edit your payment method, which credit card you're being billed on, all that stuff, you've got to call someone to have that happen. You can't fix it in product. And so it's pretty, I mean, you can log into your Intuit account, right? But you don't have a quick area where you can go in, log in, and see what you're doing. So if I needed to change from my American Express, which I'm being billed for this account, I would be able to go in there and do this. You can also see in product what you're paying for, right? So I'm in QuickBooks Advanced. When you are in QuickBooks Desktop, you can see things like I have Enterprise, but I don't know which level of Enterprise I have, meaning silver, gold, platinum, or diamond, right? So there's no way to kind of see some of this stuff in product. So it's great that QuickBooks Online has that access and ability right away. Okay. Also, you can see what is connected. So in QuickBooks Desktop, you do have certain things that you can have connected, right, through the integrated app. So if I go into Edit and Preferences, I can see which applications I have integrated, but I don't have access to other services. So things like QuickBooks Online Payroll, obviously, because payroll is integrated inside a desktop. If I have a Salesforce connection, right? Things like ordering checks and supplies, you can do the same thing inside of QuickBooks Desktop in several areas. But anyway, so it's pretty neat, though, that you can go in and edit that payment method. That is very convenient. Most of our enterprise clients end up calling us when they need to change payment methods or subscriptions or anything like that. And we're here to help, but that's definitely kind of cool. Usage. So when we go into usage here, the purpose of usage when it comes to QuickBooks Online is telling you when you're needing to go into advanced, right? And QuickBooks Desktop has a similar thing. So when you're in Pro or Premier, it'll tell you when you hit your list limitations. So if you have a customer list and it hits that 13,001 customer, it's going to say, hey, you cannot add another customer to this customer list. You've maxed out on your customers that you can add, but it doesn't have a nice screen that kind of tells you a count of where you're going. All right. So things to keep in mind with this, with the users, it's nice, again, you can track how many billable users you have accessing the file. So if this number seems off, good to come in here and look. This is billable users in QuickBooks Online Advanced because you can have unlimited time entry users, view only users, report users, then those don't count against these users. In QuickBooks Enterprise, there isn't technically a limit, like I can go in there and add 100 users if I wanted to. It monitors the users by how many are logged into the file at any one given time. However, the end user license agreement, EULA agreement, is supposed to be based on users, right? So if you have a 30 user license, a 40 user license, then you're not supposed to be going in and adding those extra users beyond 40 in here, okay? And then just to kind of keep in mind, in the Pro and Premier world, for chart of accounts as an example, the chart of accounts limit is 10,000. In the enterprise space, the limit is 100,000. In the QuickBooks Online Advanced world, the next version down of QuickBooks Online before Advanced is Plus, and the limit of accounts in the chart of accounts is 250. Not 250,000, but 250. And then above 250 accounts, you need to be in QuickBooks Online Advanced. All right, let's get into some more exciting stuff. So a lot of the preferences in QuickBooks Online Advanced are around forms, right? So a lot of the information's in here. If you are going in and taking and peeking through QuickBooks Online Advanced, the other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you edit in those sections, because each little section inside of here has an edit. Sometimes when you edit, it will open up more fields, right? So it's fields you can't see. Or sometimes when you enable something, it will open up more fields. So if you're looking for something, sometimes you do have to poke around a little bit more. Okay, so first of all, we have customized forms here. Again, this is not something that is in preferences inside a desktop. This is in your templates under your lists. We're not going to go through customization. That's going to be a whole other 30-minute segment when it comes to the two different products. Some things that you do have in online that we don't, some things we have in online that we don't have in desktop. So we have preferred invoice terms, right? So it's a default term that we want filled in on all of our customers that are created, or when we set up our invoices automatically. So in a lot of ERP systems, you will see that. What is my default terms on both the customer side and the vendor side? They also have the preferred delivery method. So this is, again, the default delivery method. In desktop, we do have a preference around that in send forms, but it's a personal preference. And it is to auto check the email later checkbox if the customer's preferred delivery method is email, right? So it's not talking about like on send forms when we, print them out and send them. It doesn't have that preference in here. So anyway, kind of neat. Shipping. So in QuickBooks Online, you can enable some fields that are not available in desktop. So in the shipping area, as an example, I'm just going to hover over this so you can see things like the ship date that is available in desktop. You have to customize the form. Tracking number is not a field that's standard available. You have to set up a custom field for that. Destination, I assume they mean, I don't know what they mean by that, but maybe FOB, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they mean by destination in there. And then a subtotal for shipping. So you can add all of these different fields onto the sales form. So again, this is kind of like a customizing forms, but it's in the overall preferences. Custom fields we're going to be talking about in another video for us, but custom fields you can enable in here as well. Custom transaction numbers. So if you want to allow people to edit and view the transaction numbers, so like when they enter a invoice as an example or an estimate in QuickBooks Online, if you don't want them to be able to edit the transaction number, you can turn this off, right? So they're not allowed to custom enter transaction numbers. In QuickBooks Desktop, if you wanted to do that, you would have to edit the template and take that field off the screen, right? So you can go into templates and decide what you see on the screen versus what you want to print out. So you'd have to take like the invoice number off the screen entirely. It's not really a great way to do that. Service date, so we have this in both products. This is just going to add the field to the template on the invoices. These three, discount, deposit, and tips, these three are things that we don't have in desktop. So what this does is it adds a field actually at the bottom. If you're looking at an invoice, right, and usually in desktop we see sales tax in the lower right-hand corner as an example, and all the lines are above. This is going to add a box in that lower right-hand corner of the invoice for discounts, for taking down payments or deposits, and for tips and gratuity. So once we turn these on, what happens down the line, right, that's going to be another webinar for us, but the fact that you can add those extra boxes in that specific place is something that QuickBooks Online has that's very unique. In QuickBooks Desktop, if you're going to do something like this, then you would be adding it as an additional line on the transaction itself, and it would show up just like any other lines on that transaction. Okay, tags. So tags is a pretty important one as well. In QuickBooks Online, tags are ways to categorize your data. So if you think about in QuickBooks Desktop, we have classes, right? So you have a class list. And then when you look at your class list, you can have a class and then you can have subclasses underneath. But when I put a class on a transaction, I choose bikes as my header class and treadmills as the class underneath. When I do that, I can't choose bikes and treadmills and then also installation extended warranty. Inside of QuickBooks Online Advanced, you have the ability to do this thing called tags. So when I go in and create an invoice, as an example, I can add in a tag here and notice that I have tags and then tag groups. So I can say this is for operations sales and this is also repair, okay? And then I can go in and run profit and loss to say, show me operations sales versus operations marketing, show me all repair if I had subcategories. So it's just an extra way to splice data. It's a very powerful way to splice data. Notice it as at the header of the transaction, not at the line level. And we still have classes in here anyway, right? But it is a really powerful field. So it's something to keep in mind. Definitely cool. It's to me, a reaction to a different product, Zero, right? Which does something very similar. Okay, moving on for invoice payments. So accept credit cards and accept ACH. You also have this in QuickBooks Desktop in Preferences, right? So we have our payments information and do we allow our customers to pay us by credit card or ACH online? Very similar things. Coming down to products and services, again, this is kind of just like, what do I want to show on the template? So on the sales form, I want to show my products and services. I want to show the SKU. I want to show the quantity and rate. right? Not just like a price. So those are all just kind of customizing the forms, which we would be doing in templates in desktop. We do have the ability to turn on price rules in QuickBooks Online Advanced. And so this is similar to in QuickBooks Enterprise, where we go into our sales and customers and we have our custom pricing down below. So we have price rules, which would be advanced pricing, and then we also have price levels there. So very similar. Okay, and then of course we have track inventory quantity on hand. So this is basically, do you want to track inventory? Yes or no? What's pretty interesting about this is in QuickBooks Desktop, when you go in to track inventory, it says inventory and purchase orders are active. So when you turn on purchase orders, you are also turning on inventory. In QuickBooks Online, you can do those separately. So I turn on inventory, and then when we get to the expenses section, I can turn on and enable purchase orders. So they're not tied together. Okay, going down, so we have late fees. So they call these late fees. In QuickBooks Desktop, we call these finance charges, right? So do we have finance charges? We do have them available, and we can set up, the amount of the finance charge, all that fun stuff. I don't know too many people actually who use those, but it is available. Progress invoicing. So inside of here, progress invoicing is saying, do we create multiple invoices from a single estimate? And so we can enable that. So that would be if you do based on percentage of completion or based on deliverables maybe. In desktop, when you enable those features under jobs and estimates, you do have just a yes or no also, but it does enable other fields on templates when you set those up on both. Okay, any kind of messages, not very exciting, but what's the default message? Again, we do these on templates. Invoice reminders, you do set these up in here, so you can come in and say what what information you're sending out. Do you also want to send yourself an email reminder? All of these things can happen through send forms. What is our default message? And then also we have, the plain text, which we'll see. Is that here? No, it's down further. Okay. The other thing that desktop has in a different area, just so that we're aware, is they have under customers, they have payment reminders. They added this in a couple years ago about doing customer groups and when you're going to have certain customer groups get reminders, so they might not all be consistent. So there's just a little bit more complexity to it there. Okay. You have some online delivery message information. So again, this is where we can decide, do we want to attach the PDF copy of whatever we're sending out to them, yes or no, and then do we want a short summary in the email? So we have some extra things you don't have preferences for in desktop. When it comes to sending out copies, you can attach PDFs, but the short email versus full details email, you have to build that in when you do your send forms. Okay, and then statements show the aging table at the bottom of the statement. This is, again, a template modification, not a preference inside of QuickBooks Desktop. Going over to expenses. So we have bills and expenses. And in this section, again, it is a lot about modifying the template. Do we want to see the items? Do we want to see the items table on expense and purchase forms, yes or no? Or do we just want to see the chart of accounts? So we want to show tags on these fields, so yes or no. Are we going to track expenses and items by customer? Okay. I don't think that is a preference. I don't think there's a preference for that, right? Like in QuickBooks Desktop, it always has customer showing up on the line of an expense item. So you can't turn that off. But in here, again, if we're not doing expenses tied to a customer ever, or a project or a job, we can disable this, and it's one less thing for people to look at on their screen. Make expenses and items billable. What's the markup percentage? Do we track it as a single account, multiple accounts? And then do we charge sales tax on it? All of these are preferences down in time and expenses, company preferences. They don't have the sales tax option in here, though. So it's a little different. Okay. Here's where we can enable purchase orders. So again, a separate preference to enable them. So it's pretty neat. Not everybody who is going to be tracking purchase orders has inventory. Those can be separated. And then, of course, the default messages. Not exciting. We do have a payment section in here. So this is talking about your merchant service account connection. Again, not in preferences in desktop. You have to log into your merchant service center, but you do have that there. If I click on it, it'll just give me an error anyway. So I'm going to pass by. And then coming in here to advanced, we have some of the things that we do have standards. So accounting, what's the first month of the fiscal year? When we come into QuickBooks Enterprise, we have that again in the company settings, right? So that's going to be under my company. What is our report information? Our accounting method, accrual or versus cash. So that's going to be in report preferences. So we're not losing anything in here. So we come into reports and graphs. So we say, do we report on an accrual or cash basis? And then do we close the books? So yes, and then what's the closing date password, right? So this is all under the accounting section, closing date password. So not losing any functionality there. Was our tax form, so we set that up in the My Company section. Chart of accounts, so we enable chart of accounts numbers, yes or no, and that is also here, right? Use account numbers in the accounting section. Tips accounts, so we talked about this before, so you can add tips similar to discounts on the bottom of a form. So which tips account, where is that tips account going to point, and then also where billable expenses income account going to point. So even though we have the billable expenses over here, then we have a secondary preference that we have to touch on over here to say which income account are they going to. We have categories. So QuickBooks Online Advanced has two different categories when it comes to segmenting data. We have classes, which is the same as what we're used to in desktop. They also have something called locations. So locations allows us to run profit and loss by locations. It's just an extra way to segment data. Locations are at the header of a transaction only. So this is where you enable them. We do not have a concept of locations inside of desktop the way that's the same. We do have something like multiple warehouses, which has to do with inventory, but locations does not have anything to do with inventory per se. It is just like a class field, an extra field for us to run data on. Any automation, so pre-fill forms with previously entered content. So we do have some of this in desktop in the vendor setup, and then also like to pre-fill what we put on a journal entry, like fill in the memo automatically on the next line. But so they have some extra things in there. Automatically apply credits. We have this inside of desktop in our payment section, right, to automatically apply payments, and then also in the sales and customer section. The other thing that we have in here, though, is we have automatically invoice for unbilled activity. So this is something that we don't have in desktop. So it will create an invoice, right, automatically based on the criteria, whatever schedule we have set up here for billable activity, right? And so it'll create those invoices automatically. So that's a pretty cool feature. We don't have that in desktop at all. Coming down, we have projects available in QuickBooks Online Advanced. We do not have those available in desktop, so you enable them here. Projects are treated almost like jobs. The difference between projects and jobs, though, is that you can go, like if I go look at a job inside of QuickBooks Desktop, I cannot see time entry, right? Transactions over here is not going to show me time entry. And so if you have time card entry tied to this particular project, you will see that. It also gives you some stated costs around those time entries too. So can we enable time? It's on and off here. We have those same preferences in desktop. In currency, if we're going to enable them, and then just some general formatting down below. So I know I'm at 2 minutes. I told you it'd be really a lot to go through. So far, what we see in our preferences is that there are a lot of things that are tied to other areas in QuickBooks Desktop. They did hit on a couple things that people have asked for in desktop, right, in the preferences. So tags was a really big one. Projects is a really big one that QuickBooks Online doesn't have that desktop does. But when it comes to desktop, as you can see, there's just going to be a ton more. Now, we have a lot of videos around QuickBooks Enterprise and their settings, and so we can give those out to you guys if you guys want to run through those. But my expectation, again, for this webinar is that We have mostly enterprise users on here, trying to check out to see if QuickBooks Online Advanced will have the things that they need if they want to make that switch. Okay. Let me see if there are any questions that I can grab. Right, I'm not seeing anything right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope that you guys took away bits of information about what online is capable of doing. And please let us know if there's anything that comes up after this meeting. Next week, we are looking forward to having another session. And then also keep an eye out because we are getting prepared for our What's New in QuickBooks Desktop 2022, which is going to be coming out in a couple months here. So keep an eye out for that as well. So you guys can join in to see what's coming up new in the desktop product as well. All right, thanks everybody.